Hey guys, it's your family here, and today I was just surfing around Twitter, and I saw somebody talking about this video here by The Verge, and it's about how to build a $2,000 custom gaming PC. And I noticed that the like and dislike were disabled, and so were comments. So that was always a great start. I watched the first like 15 seconds of it, and was like, we're already off to an amazing start here. So yeah, this is just gonna be a great video about, we're gonna find out how to build a computer, because the Verge, my lighting is still not great. This one should be moved over somewhere, but I can't really move that one. That sucks. Anyway, this isn't a lighting video. This is a make fun of other people I'm just gonna sit back here. This is perfect. That's great. And so yeah, let's just start watching it and see how, maybe we can learn a few things on how to build a computer here.
So a few years ago, TC, our managing editor, built a gaming desktop, but it's kind of out of date and it's definitely not gonna hold up for Battlefield 5. So
I don't know exactly what computer they had before. So I don't know exactly what kind of specs they are. So yeah, maybe it might be out of date. Honestly, it should still be able to play, especially if they use the same kind of budget they did last time. It should still be able to run Battlefield 5. I mean, depending on the settings, of course. If they want to be playing it at 4K, 120 frames per second, because they have monitors like that now, then probably no, but you still can't do that right now, especially with what he has sitting on the table, one 1080 Ti. It's not going to be able to push 4K at 100 and anything over the like 80 or 90 frames per second.
Stop. But it's kind of out of date, and it's definitely not going to hold up for Battlefield 5. So let's build a new one. You can build a gaming desktop for around $1,000, but I want to go
You can build one cheaper. You can build one for like $600 or $700 if you want. So yeah, that's true.
So I spent around $2,000.
That's
PC
fine.
like this is going to be able to play most games at ultra settings. So what do you need to build a desktop?
What I'm seeing here looks like it's probably a $2,000 PC. It's no complaints here so far.
Well, of course, first you need a table. Preferably not metal. If it's going to be metal, have an anti-static working surface layered on top of it.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, building on metal probably isn't the best. There are capacitors and that stuff, especially the motherboard and graphics card. But yeah, I'll give you that. Yeah.
Thermal paste applicator, an Allen wrench.
Thermal paste applicator. I don't really like using those, but I know a lot of people who do, and it doesn't really affect cooling, so yeah, fine. Allen key, I guess it depends on what case you have. Most of the computers I've ever built have only needed a Phillips, just a regular screwdriver, but whatever.
Some tweezers to tighten up the wires, a Swiss Army knife, which...
What do you call those?
Some tweezers to tighten up the wires.
Tweezers.
Some tweezers to tighten up the wires. Some tweezers to tighten up the wires.
Tweezers. Yeah, okay. Well, those are tweezers, I guess. Yeah, people say the wrong thing sometimes. And I've never done that, but some people do that. I haven't, but some people. Zip ties. In case you were wondering what those are called, those are zip ties. At least he's using zip ties, okay? 2 of them is a little low on the zip tie, but I'm sort of a zip tie fiend.
A Swiss Army knife, which hopefully has a Phillips head screwdriver in it.
He's got a Phillips. I'll give him that. He's got a Phillips screwdriver. He has a Phillips screwdriver. But don't use a Swiss Army knife one. Did he say
a Swiss Army knife, which hopefully has a...
Hopefully, just hopefully. I hope it, I hope I have the right tools with it. I'm not going to check or anything, and I'm not going to actually get the proper tool. I'm just going to hope it has the right ones. Screwdriver, just to get a Phillips head screwdriver, a magnetic Phillips head screwdriver. You're never going to break anything with a little magnetic screwdriver. Honestly, it's going to save more things than it's going to kill, because you aren't going to have to fish out little screws from behind a motherboard, because you can just stick a screwdriver down there.
And last but not least, an anti-static bracelet, which is to protect you and...
Anti-static bracelet. Okay, now a couple of comments here. First, I never use an anti-static wrist strap, and I've never killed anything. Components nowadays are really, really resistant to static electricity, so you're not really gonna kill anything. Mileage varies a lot, but Jay's 2 cents has made a lot of videos talking about like building things on the carpet. I'm not sure if Linus Tech Tips has, but I know Jay has done at least 2 videos of building things on the carpet, and he lives in a dry climate, which is like perfect for static electricity. He's never killed a part like that as far as I know. I've never killed a part like that. I've built hundreds of computers at this point. I was a computer technician. I've never killed something with static electricity. But that right there that he has in his hand, that isn't any kind of anti-static wrist strap that I've ever seen. I actually have, I have my iFixit kit right here. I didn't plan that, I'll be honest. I have a sponsor, I didn't even show it. Sponsor me, iFixit. This is the best kit, by the way. I like this kit more than their new kit. This is why they aren't sponsoring me, by the way. I like their old kit much better than their new kit. By the way, just get a screwdriver. You can get this kind of thing for like $30. The newer ones are shorter than this. They're like that long or something. This isn't a review on iFixit. I swear I'm not sponsored by them. But just get a Phillips head. It's magnetic. What was it? The anti-static wrist strap. Man, I gotta stay on topic. But this is what an anti-static wrist strap looks like. Right here. It's got the little cable. You just like clip it onto anything that's grounded, basically, like a table, the case. Clip it on there. You put this part on your wrist. This part just clips on, and you can put like longer ones or whatever. And this part, you'll notice, has a little piece of metal in there, and it's really uncomfortable and it's stupid. I've never worn one except for when like our quarterly review at Fry's was in and we had to wear them or else we lost points as a store, or when I was in college and high school and I was taking classes on computer service and repair and the teacher wanted us to wear them. So I've literally only worn them when other people told me I have to. But that right there is not an anti-static wrist strap. Here's a question for him, actually. Here, I don't know his name. The Verge. Here's a question for you, The Verge. What do you think that's gonna do? What do you actually think that right here, what he has here, where do you think the static electricity is gonna go? Because I can tell you, its only outlet is into the computer. You might as well be wearing nothing. Or, into the computer, into something that's grounded. That's not gonna do anything. That's not gonna prevent that.
Which is to protect you and the parts. These are the parts you're going to need, but more importantly, before we get there, we need to understand what these parts are doing and how they interact with one another. To better understand the parts that make up a desktop, let's try to understand them individually.
Okay.
A processor is like the computer's brain, a base of calculations that control everything the computer does. The motherboard is like the foundation, serving as a main structure for all of the parts to be added to. It also allows the other parts to communicate with one another, which also makes it kind of like a nervous system. Graphics cards are responsible for rendering and processing visuals into what you see on screen. Our PC's power supply is of course channeling electricity, in that it adjusts and provides the right amount of energy to keep it running. Last but not least, RAM, or random access memory, and your hard drive are good examples of short-term and long-term memory, respectively. If you want to better understand what kind of computer to build, then first figure out what you want to use it for. A gamer might care more about a graphics card than, say, a video editor who might want extra RAM to assist with editing large files. If you're building a budget build for video streaming, say under $1,000, you want to focus on parts, like a Core i5 or Core i3 processor, that require less energy. They'll be less powerful, but then you'll be able to scale back the cost of several other parts. And if you need help choosing the right parts for your build, there's sites like PCPartPicker.com that help show presets for which parts fit together, which sort of part conflicts you might have, and where to find deals on new parts. We have a lot of boxes.
I don't really have that much to say about that one. That he covered that fairly well. Did a good job there.
And a lot of PC parts, so it's best if you unbox them.
I'm okay with this. I usually leave what I'm not currently using or currently installing in the box, and then when I'm going to be installing the graphics card, then I'll take it out of the box and everything and install it. That's my style. There's nothing really wrong with unboxing everything at once, except it just makes it a little bit more messy.
Isolate the parts that you really need, place
Yeah, that's fine. For an example, power supply, I take out all the different cables that I'll need. I'll take all that out and then plug it in. So yeah, I'll give him, he has some good information in here, bits and pieces.
Items.
He's putting the fan for that power supply, that HX850, good power supply. He's putting the fan for that right up against where the motherboard's going to be. So he's putting it where it doesn't have any breathing room right there. So it's just going to be suffocating in there, which means it's going to be running hotter and it's going to die a lot quicker because it's going to be running way over its rated temperature.
Into the case and make sure that they all fit.
I hope they flip that over.
And now we're really going to start building by adding the motherboard in.
There were a lot of B-roll shots there. I'm trying to see if I see anything because this is my first time actually watching this.
And now we're really going to start building by adding the motherboard in. Some notes about installing motherboards: they're really delicate. You should be really careful with them and screw in with confidence.
There are parts of them that are very, like, really fragile, like the actual socket. The rest of the motherboard, they're pretty robust now. Like, as long as you're not like trying to like snap it in half, they'll pretty much be fine. Like, just don't short anything. Don't like snap it in half. They'll pretty much be okay.
But also don't screw in too hard, otherwise you could crack the board.
You're not going to crack you're not going to. Is he saying that?
Some notes about installing motherboards: they're really delicate. You should be really careful with them. And screw in with confidence, but also don't screw in too hard, otherwise you could crack the board.
So yeah, he's talking about screwing in the motherboard, like the screws into the standoffs. That is not going to crack your board. They're designed for that. Just screwing it in isn't going to crack it. I know I don't like using power tools, but one of the other technicians at Fry's, he liked using just like an electric screwdriver. No problems. He used that for a bunch of computers and never hurt one. It's not going to crack the board.
I chose Asus's Z370 motherboard for two main reasons. One, it has built-in Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, and also it has support for NVMe SSDs, meaning you can get really fast SSDs that are really easy to install.
I was gonna say, if he didn't put in that I/O shield, I was gonna flip. I was just.
And you can get really fast SSDs that are really easy to install. Pay close attention to the brace that goes at the SSDs that are really easy to install. Pay close attention to the brace.
Look at how much trouble he's having.
Meaning you can get really fast SSDs.
Look at how much trouble he's having getting that I/O shield in.
Pay close attention
he doesn't even get it on. He doesn't even get it on. They're filming him trying to put in the I/O shield, and he can't get it in.
Get really fast SSDs that are really easy to install.
It's not that hard. Just line it up.
Attention to.
This is a game that, like, literally children play. You put the square in the square hole. You put the circle in the circle hole. Put the rectangle in the rectangle hole. I mean, maybe it's the camera. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. Whenever you put a camera in front of something, it's always 10 times harder. Maybe just on this one computer had a little bit of trouble putting in the I/O shield.
That goes at the back of the computer. You always have to make sure that you really hammer it in, because there's no screw. It really just has to go.
You don't have to hammer it in. It's got clips. You just clip it in. Make sure it's fully seated, but you don't need to like beat it in or anything. My God, I thought he was just not going to mention that.
Outside of the case.
It's like, dude, you're embarrassing yourself.
And clasp onto the frame. And this is very important because otherwise you can't align the motherboard correctly with the holes. We're just going to start installing all the screws.
Yeah,
okay. So next we're going to install the RAM on the motherboard. I chose Corsair's 16GB Vengeance LED RAM.
Good RAM, good quality RAM. Corsair is very good at compatibility. You can use it even when Ryzen first came out and it was having a bunch of RAM compatibility issues. Corsair was pretty much like, I know Corsair is going to work. Just use Corsair, get some like LPX or some Corsair RAM. It'll work just fine. So good quality RAM. He's got a lot of good components here.
For two main reasons. One, it has LEDs, and we do like lights in our gaming desktops.
RGB adds 5 FPS. Everybody knows that. At least 5.
Secondly, it's pretty fast RAM. It's 2,666 megahertz, I believe. So it's
2666. It's a good speed. For Ryzen, I usually recommend a little bit higher. That's about the minimum I recommend for Ryzen, but he has an Intel build, which doesn't really leverage faster RAM that much. So yeah, 2666 is all you really need for Intel. Perfectly fine.
Pretty fast, and this motherboard supports that speed, which is most important.
Technically, all RAM clock speeds are overclocks. Everything over the default clock speed for DDR4, it's 2133. Some motherboards will say that they support up to like 2933, and then it'll have like an OC section that's higher than that. Technically, all RAM clock speeds are overclocks over 2133.
Open the slots first, and just aligning.
Don't need to open all 4 if you only have 2 sticks of RAM.
The stick with the middle of the strip, not with the end, and just lining that up
Put it on
with
the close one.
So once you hear that solid clasp and you don't see the gold.
I usually recommend putting stuff into slots 2 and 4 instead of 1 and 3. That's what most motherboard manuals will support or will suggest first.
Connectors on the side anymore. That's when you know the RAM is in. Step 3, we're going to install the hard drive.
But wait a second, hold on. Let me zoom in on that. He didn't even do that. He didn't even do 1 and 3. He did 1 and 2. He's going to be running that on single channel instead of dual channel. So he's going to be running it effectively with half the bandwidth that he should be running it at. And he's like, yeah, we got fast RAM. It's 2666. And then I'm going to run it in single channel.
In this case, the NVMe SSD. I chose this format of solid state drive so that
Okay, yeah. I mean, it's a good format. It's faster, even in the SATA version that he has here, because it has the two fingers on each side. So it's the SATA version instead of the NVMe version. Yeah, it's still going to be faster than a standard SATA connection, and it's definitely a lot more clean. It's fewer cables coming from the power supply, fewer cables going to the motherboard, a little bit faster, more low profile.
I could input it into the motherboard without having to worry about extra wires or putting it in a separate part of the case and just getting really messy. This is from Kingston, and it's 480 gigabytes, so it's not a lot, but you can always upgrade this and swap it out, and it's only held down by one screw and the latch, so it's really simple and really straightforward. Speed for gaming is important when it comes to a hard drive. You want files to write quickly, and you want games to load quickly, so that's why it's best if you use an SSD.
Loading quickly is definitely an advantage. You're not going to see a frame rate increase by getting an SSD. It's just going to be load times.
Okay, so step 4, we're going to install the graphics card. I chose PNY's GTX 1080, which is overclocked, and so it's a pretty easy installation. You're just going to find the gold connectors, and you're going to line this bracket with the back end bracket of your PC case. Now, which lane you choose depends entirely on what other parts you're going to put in the system. I'm just going to pick the top one because the SSD is at the bottom, and I don't want to cover it.
It sort of depends on more than that. You want to go with the top slot. He ended up picking the correct one, but not necessarily for the correct reasons. You want to pick this top slot because especially in like standard, like consumer grade hardware like this, like an 8700K or something. I'm assuming he's using an 8700K. You want it in the top slot because that CPU only has 16 lanes, 16 PCIe lanes. And the top slot is going to be a 16x slot. Typically, even if typically the lower ones will be 8x or 4x, and so that you're not going to get the full performance of your card. So yeah, just put it in the top. Just put it in the top slot. He ended up putting it in the correct one. Also, I'd just like to revisit the anti-static wrist strap that he has here. What do you think that's doing? Is it like transmitting through the air out of your body, or I don't know.
Just think it looks nice. Click down. Take your remaining brackets and just put them in the spots that you haven't used. You don't have to screw these in. They get bolted down by the back end bracket.
Technically, you don't.
Your GPU's installed.
But I mean, did he even put in? Okay, technically you don't need to screw it in, but you should, because it can start to sag, and that's not good, especially if you have a really beefy graphics card. The top part of the card could start to sag down.
Flight time.
That's not really good. So you want to screw those in just so that they stay stable.
I chose Corsair's 850 watt power supply because I need enough.
Oh, it looks like you took it out. Good, good.
Of headroom for ray tracing GPUs when they come out, and I don't want to have to upgrade it again. So all you have to do is take the brick and make sure that you align it with these little insulating pads so that the power supply doesn't short circuit and come into contact.
It's not going to short circuit. Those pads are just for vibrations. That's just to absorb that little vibration from the fan and make it a little quieter. It's not going to short circuit
with the rest of the system. So just take it in, slide it in nice and easy until you have a snug fit, and then shift it to the back and make sure it's right up against the frame. He did it again. Oh, and unless they just used the same B-roll shot for earlier in the video, but he did it fan towards the motherboard. You can see exactly what I was talking about earlier. So just take right here. See? Look. You can see the motherboard. Yeah, I'm pointing at the screen, but you can't see it. Look, he's putting the motherboard. He has the fan right like that against the motherboard. That's power supply is going to die. Slide it in nice and easy until you have a snug fit, and then shift it to the back and make sure it's right up against the frame. Now you just take the required screws and you tighten and screw in. So next step, we're going to install the CPU core. And this,
hey, at least his Swiss Army knife had a Phillips head.
And screw in.
Luckily.
So next step, we're going to install the CPU core. In this case, it's going to go on the top end of the case. And we're just going to have the hose hang out for a little while until we install the processor, which is going to come a little later.
He hasn't.
Always be sure to...
I don't like to do this because, and here's my reasoning for it, there's the radiator and then there are the tubes going to the water block in the pump. And if you're going to be moving your computer around as you're building it, like, oh, I have to plug in these cables, so you turn it around, then you turn it around, you flip it over, and then you flip it over or whatever. If you're as ADD as me and you like, oh, I gotta plug these things, and then you plug those things in, then you're gonna be flipping it around a bit. And I don't like to have those tubes and everything hitting up against my graphics card, my motherboard. I just don't like to do that. I'm gonna have to get some water. I didn't expect this to be a 40-minute recording.
Try to place it in the system first before you install it, because you can see it takes up a lot of space. But in this case, no pun intended, it fits in perfectly, and we're gonna start screwing it in. And so there's nothing special about this screwing in process. They're just really long screws because they go through the entire frame of the cooler, and they take forever.
Oh no. No, no, no. Oh no. Oh no. Oh no, I really haven't watched this video before. I'm not lying when I said that. Oh my god. Oh my god, what is he doing? Did he really punch that whole thing through his radiator? Oh, that radiator is... If he did actually put that entire screw through his radiator, I would be shocked if it isn't leaking. Oh my god. I know people, I've seen like people online who have like tightened. I know that this was a problem with some older Corsair all-in-one liquid coolers. They didn't have any blockers underneath the screw thing, so you could just screw straight into the fins like he would have to be doing here, like in this picture right here, and it just screws straight into it. Shut up, phone. It just screws straight into the radiator, and it like bends all the pins, and there are a bunch of little water channels that go all the way across the water block, not the water block, the radiator. If you puncture one of those, it's dead. It takes a really long time. That means you're doing something wrong.
Because they go through the entire frame of the cooler, and they take forever.
He's really doing it. Oh my god. Oh my god. Just watch Linus Tech Tips. Subscribe to Linus Tech Tips. And Jay's 2 cents, and Bitwit Kyle, and Paul's Hardware. There are a bunch of other people. Am I peeking this entire time? There we go. Now I shouldn't be peeking. There are a lot of good tech YouTube channels that do computer builds that are a lot better than this one, that actually have good information rather than this one. Oh god, this is so bad.
So next up,
he really did it. He put in Okay, look at this. Do you see anything wrong with the screws besides the fact that they are incredibly long and going through the entire thing? How does he manage to fit the fans in there then? He's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 blank. He didn't even do all the screws. He didn't even put them all in.
Every power supply is going to come with a big bag of Velcro cables. It's kind of daunting at first, so you always have to find the ones that are going to fit. In this case, you need to match those cables with the correct descriptions on the power supply.
True.
Next step is we're connecting the power supply to the motherboard with a 24-pin cable. We're just matching that cable from the motherboard, threading it through the back, and attaching the 24-pin header to the power supply so that we can have one of the connections.
This video looks like it's a parody of Bitwit did a parody of somebody who doesn't know how to build a computer. Jay did like a things not to do while building a computer video just a little while ago. I swear this video looks like it's a parody of one of those videos, but this is actually somebody trying to be informative.
It's complete. The next few additions will be for the GPU, for any specific ports that the case has, for any lighting that the case has, the CPU cooler, anything else really. We're installing the CPU.
Another thing is he didn't post the computer outside of the case. I will always post the computer out of the case before I install everything, so just make sure everything works and just post it one time and then put it all together. He didn't do that. He also put the graphics card in way earlier. I like to put the graphics card in pretty much last because it's a big, gigantic, bulky thing and it makes it hard to get the other cables in for some stuff, especially SATA cables. Oh my god, are those things a pain to get in if you have the graphics card installed.
CPU, the heart of the computer or the brain, depending on how you look at it. So to do this, we're just going to remove the plastic covering that they put on the motherboard.
You don't want to take that off. When you just raise up the bracket, you put the CPU into the socket, and then when you close it back down and crank the retention arm back down, it'll pop off and then you just remove it. Yeah, I just don't like taking out the plastic cover. I like to just let the CPU do it. It's designed to do it, so just let it do what it's designed to do.
Take this little plastic part out. Just toss that out of here. And now we have an
You should actually keep that, because if you have to RMA the motherboard, they're going to want that socket cover to be on the motherboard once they receive it. So you want to put that in a safe place, like the motherboard box.
Exposed CPU holder, or rather slot.
Socket.
On the motherboard.
Slot.
And we're going to use the CPU applicator. This is a special little part that...
I've never actually used one of those. I've seen somebody who used one, but I've never actually used one. I don't know what's so difficult about just holding it by the corners and putting it in. I don't know what's so difficult. Line the triangles up and then put it in. You don't need a sled or whatever to be able to put it in.
Not everyone may get, but this motherboard that we got from ASUS...
And then he was using...
This is a special little part that not everyone may get.
I wouldn't do that.
But this motherboard that we got from ASUS definitely does have. It's called a CPU installation tool. It makes it really useful if you want to install a Core i7 hexa-core CPU. Yeah, we've got one, and it's an 8th generation chip, and it's ready to go, and it supports overclocking. So what having this little installer does for you is it's basically a brace that you can apply right to the CPU and light it up with the triangles that you'll see on the bottom left corners. And this will make it easier for us to apply it to the motherboard and then apply thermal paste and then apply a CPU cooler on top.
It just makes it easier to install it, and it doesn't really make it that much easier to install it. Just put it in. It's not that difficult.
You're just going to carefully lean it down into the system and make sure that everything lines up.
You don't need to push on it. You give it a little bit of a wiggle.
Down on it and we'll be good to go. So we're about to apply thermal paste to the CPU. Every CPU cooler actually comes with a bit of thermal paste already neatly applied in a circle around it, but it's usually not enough. It's good, essentially PC building practice to have a little bit extra and layer it on top of the CPU. The final portion is to add the CPU.
Oh no. Is he gonna put it with the pre-applied in addition to that? Oh no. Don't do that. I could see you not wanting to use the pre-applied thermal compound. Okay, let's go back.
extra and layer it on top of the CPU.
You want to put, when you're installing thermal compound, you want to put about, depending on the CPU, about a grain of rice sized, like between an uncooked and a cooked grain of rice in the center for a CPU of this size. For one bigger than that, like a X299 or an X99, then you'd want to have like a pea-sized amount in the center. Threadripper is a whole nother thing. You want like a ton of thermal compound on that. You like want stripes down the center of it. For a CPU like this, that's too much. I would probably put about half of that, and that's without the pre-applied thermal compound. I think he's going to be putting the pre-applied thermal compound on top of all of that. I've seen people, he's not doing the worst thing ever, which is like, I've seen people actually put like an entire tube of thermal compound onto a CPU, and it actually went under the CPU, got in all the little pins in the socket, killed the motherboard. So just, you know, grain of rice to a pea, and don't use that and the pre-applied.
Portion is to add the CPU cooler to the top end of the processor. So you're going to see that there are 4 brackets.
What did he do to the thermal compound? What did he do to it? Another thing, if you have too much thermal compound, it can also act as it will actually insulate the CPU. I had somebody who put on basically an entire tube of thermal compound. Luckily it was a smaller tube, and the temperatures on the computer were just sky high. It was turning off because it was getting way too hot. I just scraped all that off, put a little, like the correct amount, like a grain of rice sized amount of thermal compound on it, booted up just fine, ran just fine, temperatures were normal, everything was fine. So just a little bit of thermal compound, not that much.
Rather like screws in here with brackets and holders right here. And
he also didn't show how to put those in.
We're going to keep the cooler raised off the processor, but it's also going to be close enough to actually physically come in contact with it, like basically keep it.
Yeah, but he didn't show how to put on the back plate or those screws. He didn't show that. I don't know why. Couldn't imagine why.
Bit cool. Take thumb screws like this and just screw them on. So now that our internals are done, we're going to put all the panels back on, which is the top glass, side glass, front glass, and of course the back panel,
so you put
where
fans on all
this fun stuff is happening. So we fully built the
Okay, he did. Are those
PC? Everything's
okay. Those look like they're exhaust fans. I like to have positive air pressure, so I might have put the radiator on the front and put the single exhaust on the top. Maybe that's just me. It's generally better to have positive air pressure than negative. He's gonna have negative in this case, so he's gonna have negative air pressure. It's just not good for dust buildup. That's pretty much it. The thermals are gonna be pretty much the same. You try to have as balanced airflow as possible. Is the takeaway.
Put together, and we got to the post screen. So what's next? Well, you need a USB flash drive with your Windows installation media on.
I actually have that exact same flash drive. That's fine. You know, I'll go grab it real quick. It's a really nice flash drive. It's got this really bad design flaw. As you can see, this just comes off like this. This was my SDI, my Snappy Driver Installer flash drive. So this has a bunch of drivers on it. It just comes straight off. It's not a very good design. It's a good flash drive. It's a really fast flash drive. It's just that build quality in that aspect is not great.
On it, and of course a license key. So I plugged that up, installed Windows in a couple of minutes, installed a bunch of drivers.
He still has his RAM in the wrong slots. Should be a gap in there. At least he put the logo in the correct way. He has the Corsair logo the correct way on that liquid cooler.
And now we have a fully functioning gaming PC ready to run some games. Right now I've got Arma 3 running at maximum settings, native resolution, which is 1080p HD. And it's running pretty smoothly. Like, I'm averaging 70 and 80 FPS, and this is normally like a very intensive game to run. And it's still doing a pretty good job. So right now I'm playing League of Legends. It's one of my favorite games. I'm actually playing against a bot, and I'm distracted, so I'm not actually doing so well. But otherwise, like, this is pretty much what you would see me do on a gaming computer. Test stuff out, and hopefully have really high frame rates like I am right now. I'm averaging 120 FPS, and that's only because I've actually locked the game to that frame rate, because I can get around 300 FPS playing League on maximum settings, which is a little bit absurd.
He locked it at 120 because it'll go to 300.
And you don't really need that, so I locked it.
Unless it's just 120 hertz monitor.
Building a gaming desktop has been a great experience.
I don't recognize that
I'm
one.
able to max out a lot of my favorite titles, and I'll be able to play a lot of upcoming titles like Battlefield 5 and Cyberpunk 2077 without worrying too much about the parts I have. When ray tracing GPUs come out, for example, I'll be able to upgrade without having to buy a completely new system. And if I have a problem down the line, I can always just swap out a part and have it serviced rather than losing my whole computer. And of course, now we also have a computer to test and benchmark games here at The Verge.
The Verge, presented by Capital One. So I think that's basically it for this video, then another 20 seconds.
Thanks for watching. Let me know if you've built a computer before yourself, or how you would spend $2,000 on your own build.
Is he gonna say in the comments?
I'm really interested in seeing what sort of parts you guys would get.
In the comments.
And don't forget to like this video and subscribe to The Verge if you haven't already.
Let's read the description. So, how do we build a custom gaming PC? Well, it's not impossible to build your own Windows desktop. In fact, it's a great way to learn about what makes most computers tick. Building your own desktop is a great way to ensure you'll have a computer that perfectly suits your current and future needs. Here, Stefan Etten shows us how to build your own gaming desktop. Subscribe. Like The Verge on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram. Read more. Community guidelines. Subscribe to The Verge. Science. I'm not going to be subscribing. There's a reason this thing... I guess it was only posted 2 days ago, but it's less than 100,000 views. Like and dislike are disabled. Comments are disabled. Tell us what you think. Have you built a computer before? Tell us what you think. Have you built a computer before? So yeah, this whole video is a joke. It's like that guy, I don't know how many computers he's built, but I mean, I guess it's less than like 5, but he never bothered to like, I don't want to badmouth him too much. So yeah, I'll leave some links in the description to Jay's 2 cents, Linus Tech Tips, Bitwit Kyle, and Paul's Hardware. They all have videos on how to actually build a computer correctly. They actually have good information on how to build computers and stuff like that. So go subscribe to them if you really would like to know more about building computers. And yeah, I think I'm pretty much done here. So thanks for watching. Leave a like if you enjoyed this video, not theirs. Leave a dislike, I guess, if you don't like me pointing out inaccuracies in The Verge. Leave a comment with anything else. Did you see anything else that I missed that they did wrong? And, you know, hit the bell icon if you want to more videos about me rambling for an hour over a 10-minute video. Goodbye.